it, you can always go back to actually watch the video if you missed out on one or two things. Yes, so that's why I needed to pause. So apologies. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay. All right. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we would be looking at mastering SharePoint site administration, best practices for building, managing, and securing sites. Okay, so my name is Joshua Adigun. I'll be your moderator for today. Please, would like you to, like I mentioned earlier, to give your maximum attention to this session because our tutor today, Nyore, is not just someone that has knowledge in SharePoint Online or SharePoint as a whole, but she's also a subject matter expert. Right, so it's one thing you are an expert, but a subject matter expert in SharePoint who should be giving us some tips on how best we can build, manage, and secure our site. I would say I've known her for a long time. She has worked with other big Microsoft partners across, not just Nigeria, across the world. She has vast experience in SharePoint Online and Microsoft administration as a whole. So she's here today to give us from her wealth of knowledge. So please let's ensure we are very much attentive. Okay, so we also have our we have MJ Olajumoke Toriola, who is our who is in charge of the Microsoft 365 Nigeria Microsoft 365 community. She's a CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Ashem, with over 18 years of progressive work experience in different spheres of information technology. Just a quick housekeeping rules before we begin the session quickly. Please, let's be aware that this session will be recorded and will be made available on the community's YouTube channel. While we are here also, I will enjoy us to mute our mics. Please, maybe when the tutor asks for feedback, like, can you hear her or are we following? We can use the reactions, right? So that just to avoid us unmuting and then some of us forgetting to mute our mics. And then you can put down your questions, right, until the Q&A session. But again, when the tutor asks for a feedback, asking if we have questions, yes, we can unmute our mics to ask questions. You can also drop your questions in the chat box. I'll be here to answer some, and then I'll call the attention of Nyore to it so that she can also give you expert advice or expert answer on your questions. Please, we also encourage you to follow us on our Twitter page at NGM365. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search NGM365 channel on YouTube. Should see us with the first picture you saw when I shared my screen. And then we also value your feedback. The feedback link is on the screen. You can suggest topics you would like us to discuss. You can suggest ways we can train train better and other things, right? Just to ensure that the community is moving forward. And if there's any other thing also you don't like, please also drop it in the feedback session and then we'll address it promptly. Right. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll hand over the mic to you're ready to turn on to proceed. Thank you. Nyore, over to you.
Good afternoon. Sorry, good evening, everyone. As rightly stated, we're going to be looking at site administration. So basically, we're trying to see how you can be all round in SharePoint. SharePoint is not something that you just dive into. You need to know the basics of SharePoint to be very confident in being a SharePoint administrator, right? So we're basically going to take a look at, I'll just share my screen to show you the topics that we're going to look at. Okay, just give me a moment to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen. I don't think I'm sharing it yet. Come back. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at site creation, the site deletion, restore deleted sites, manage site admins, manage site creation, change site addresses, manage site redirects, and then locking and unlocking sites. We're going to talk about root sites, how to change your site address, and a few other things. So I'm just going to go directly into my SharePoint Admin Center, and then we can go ahead from there. Please give me a minute. Mhm. Okay. Okay, so first thing we have on our agenda today is site creation. So I'm sure we know this is the SharePoint Admin Center. And then as a SharePoint admin, you go to your admins and then you navigate to SharePoint Admin Center. So this is my SharePoint Admin Center. And then to create a site, you have sites, you have active sites and deleted sites. To create a site, you go to active sites, and then click on create. We have different types of SharePoint sites, templates, and all of that. So a theme site is a site that comes with a group. We also have a team site without a group, an Office 365 group. Sometimes for easy collaboration, you might want to create a site that has a group because that comes with other features like a team and then a group email for the team for maybe sharing of emails or sharing of content in the site. So this is a communication site basically for news creation, for communication in the organization and all of that. They basically do the same thing, but the interfaces are different. But this comes without a team. So for example, talking about site creation, we'll just go ahead and create a team site and go ahead from there. So Microsoft has, in the past, we didn't have all of these different templates for site creation, but now Microsoft have created different templates that you can choose from when you're creating a team site. So you can basically just take a look at all of the templates and see which one works best for you. For example, if you want to create a site for employee onboarding, you can click on this one. It's basically an interface and then you edit instead of going ahead to create a site from scratch. You have um a template already created for you and then you just edit it, which makes work easier, right? So we have crisis communication team, employee onboarding, event planning, IT help desk, project management, you name it. We just go ahead to create a standard team site and go ahead from there. You can see M365 community, right? So myself and owner of the site. And then I go ahead to create a site. So this is a team site with a group. So I can add members now, or I can decide not to add any member now because maybe I want to still put some things in place in the site before I add anybody to the site. But if I want to add members now, I can add members now and then go ahead to finish creating the site. And here we are. Okay. So here we are. We've created the site. It's just a basic site, as you can see. It doesn't have anything in the site, unlike the other sites that are templated, that already has some features in it. You just go ahead and rename to what you want. So that is that for site creation. I think what we have next is site deletion. So I'm going to leave this site just for other practicals that we're going to do. So I'm not going to delete it. I would just okay. So I'm just going to create another test site and delete that one. Because I think someone's mic is unmuted. Kindly mute your mic. Okay, so this is the site that we just created that we might want to delete. So if you are in your admin center and you need to delete a site, you can just click on the site and click on delete and delete the site. Another way you can delete a site is from inside the site itself. So I'm just waiting for the settings. So you click on settings, site information, delete site from here, right? So yeah, that's another way that you can delete the site. So two ways to delete a site from the admin center, or if you are already inside the site, you don't want to log into the admin center to go and delete the site. You just come to site information and delete site. It does absolutely the same thing, deletes the site for you. So when you delete a site, you are deleting everything about the site, the Office 365 group, the team, and members and everything. So that site is deleted. And if you come to deleted sites, you're going to find the site here. This is the site that we just deleted. So you have the option to restore the site that was just deleted. So we can go ahead to restore the site from here and it would restore. Also, you can permanently delete a site, but I'm sure it's taking some time for this to come up. So if you want the site to be deleted permanently, you can also go ahead to delete the site permanently or restore the site. So I think that is that for site creation and site deletion. We've talked about site restore. So we're going to move ahead to manage site admins. So basically, managing site admins is managing who has access to the site, managing who's the owner of the site, and what everyone can do in the site. So M365. So this is the site that we're going to be using for the test. And most times you can do a lot of site management from here. This gives you basic information on the site name, site description, the email address of the site. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a site with a group, so it has an email address. So these are the activities that are going on the site. We don't have any file stored yet. We haven't edited anything. Everything is still as it is because we just created the site. Site membership. Here we have the site owner. As you saw while I was creating the site, I added just myself as the owner of the site. We do not have any member yet. Okay, as the site owner, I'm also a member. And M365 community owners is a site admin. Site owners, the same thing. Site members, owners, members, and visitors are default groups when you create a site. So that's why we have those by default. So I can also add myself as a site admin, even if I'm a site owner. So added myself as a site admin. So I can add members from here or add owners from here. I can also go into the site to add owners, members, and visitors. Owners are people that have full control on the site. You'll be able to invite users to the site, delete anything on the site. You'll be able to have full control on the site. Meanwhile, members have just edit permission on site. Something you need to note, which is an issue I've had with different users, customers from different organizations, when you create a site, I'm just going to delve a bit into permissions, and then you grant users owners permission. If you go into a document library or go into a site and you stop inheriting permission, or you share a particular file folder to a specific user and you still see that people have permission on that folder, that is because they are owners of the site. An owner of an environment or owner of a property, there's no way you can say, oh, I'm an owner and I cannot enter into a specific room. Because you have granted me access as an owner, I have access to everything, right? You cannot prevent me from going into a specific document library or any of that. So owner's permission has a lot of privilege. So you can either do site members and then prevent all of those overall access for that. So we go to settings. Under site management, you can, all of this falls under permissions, right? Let people outside your let people outside email this team. This is basically email addresses and all of that. Then for sharing, depending on how you want the files, folders, and everything in the site to be shared, anyone as existing guest, only people in your organization. Please let me know if I'm going too fast or if we're okay. Joshua, sorry, I don't think I have access to the chat, so you may want to let me know. For some reasons, I can't access the chat to know if there's any reaction.
All right, I will let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we just talked about managed site admins. So we're going to talk about managed site creation. So basically, managing site creation is seeing if you want to prevent users from being able to create sites. Office 365 page, for example, you click on SharePoint here, you would see that by default, there's a button that says create site, which everybody that has a license in your organization would have. And for this reason, some people, just because they want to see what will happen, they'll just go here and create sites that is not needed and might disrupt your SharePoint admin as a SharePoint administrator in the organization. So you might want to prevent anybody from, oh, what is this? Let me see what it looks like. And then they just go and create a site and everybody's creating sites. So you might want to prevent that. This is your SharePoint admin center. You go to settings, right? And if you look through this, there's an option that says site creation. If you click on this, users can create sites. You can see it is automatically enabled. So you can uncheck this and save. When you uncheck that and save, it is supposed to take off this. Okay, so you see that option is gone. Anybody that logs into SharePoint and go to their SharePoint homepage shouldn't be able to see the option to create sites. So with that, you can prevent unnecessary site creation in your organization. Okay, so I will just go back and check that setting because it is something I need. But if you don't mind, you can just leave that on and then save it. So once you do that, only the SharePoint admin will be able to create sites by going into the admin center, click on active sites and create sites. So we can go further into into the site creation and see. Okay. Sorry. So this is the modern settings setting interface. If you scroll all the way to the end, you will see for classic settings page, right? So I will just look for creation. So you can also do it from here on the classic page, site creation. You see the option to hide site creation command or show site creation command. This is for classic. And then for sub-site creation, when you are in a site, you can create a sub-site that is basically under site management. So I'm just going to do something to disable sub-site creation. When I was learning SharePoint, right, doing all of this, we went into the settings page just like this, and then we disabled sub-site creation. So at some point during our learning phase, the person taking us SharePoint, we decided to go and create a sub-site. And then when you go into your site, you go into site creation, site content, sorry, and you click on sub-sites. Click on new. You're supposed to have an option that says sub-site. So they told us to create a sub-site, and then everybody went into site content, click on new, create a sub-site. We couldn't find sub-site creation. Everybody could not find sub-site creation, but because we were new to SharePoint, we forgot that we already turned off site creation some days ago. And even our tutor was confused why we couldn't see sub-site creation. But somehow he remembered that we had turned off sub-site creation, and then we went back to enable the settings. So if you're, I'm just saying, if you are trying to turn off some settings, just make sure if it's something that you think you might not remember, just have like a note somewhere of all of the features that you had turned off. So if you see something that is unusual, you can always go back and remember the setting that you had turned off and then try to turn it back on. And that should help you. So I'll come back here to enable sub-site creation. Say okay. So if I go back into this, I should be able to see the option to create a sub-site. See. Okay. Enable sub-site creation. Sometimes you just need to give it a little time or some few minutes, and then you would see what you have done. So you can see we now have the option to create a sub-site. The sub-site is basically a site inside a site. This is the child site to the site that we have created. And then you can also manage all of this from the main site that you have created. So you can see this is a site, or it is a child site of the parent site that we have created. And if you look at the URL, you would see that it is created under the M365 community site that we just created. Right. So if I click on this, I can just do this to go back to the main site. Right. So if you see, the test subsite is automatically showing here. But just to make it easy, these are navigations which we will treat later on. I can just click on edit and then add that link there. So it will be easy for me, to just navigate. Then I save. Okay, so if I want to go into the subsite, I can just easily go into subsite from the main page, and then I'm in my subsite. And then I can do the same for the parent site. I can just do this same thing we just did so that it is easy for me to navigate both ways. Yes. Okay, so basically that is that for that. If we have questions later, I would go ahead with just mm, okay, so we've talked about manage site admin, manage site creations. So we're going to go ahead with changing site address, changing site names, managing site redirects. Okay, so I'm just going to go back here. So changing site address is basically trying to change the URL of this site so that so let's say maybe I have this site and I don't want the site to be named M365 community anymore. So I'm just going to keep this somewhere. Let me look for my notepad. Okay. So I want to change the URL of that site and then maybe the name, so that when anybody clicks on this, it doesn't go to this. Or I just want to change the name and the URL to, let's say, M365 community deep dive. Okay. So I would say edit. So I can edit the name from here. And just do the same for description. Okay, so changes are made. Then the site address. Sometimes you might want to rename just the site name, and then you want to leave the site address as the same, or you want to rename the site address, leave the name the same, just vice versa. So the same thing you do, you can edit from the admin center, and then I say deep dive, right? And I say sometimes if you name, let me do this first. So for example, if I was doing this and it says it's not available, it means that a different site in my center already have the same name, and then I cannot have two sites with the same site address, which obviously doesn't make any sense to have two sites having the same site address. So I would save that, and no, because we already changed the name. So you can see it says allow up to 10 minutes for your site address to change to this. Your site is read only during this time. Close this window to track progress. So, okay. So it didn't take up to 10 minutes, but let's see if we can access it now. Okay, so you can see the site name has changed. The site URL has changed as well. Okay, so remember before I changed the name, I copied this site address somewhere else, the old site address. So let's see. You can see that this site is still redirecting to the site that it was, right? So in this case, let's say for example, I renamed this site M365 Deep Dive Community so that I can create another site with M365 Community. But I'm still getting redirected when, okay, let me just show you what I mean. M365 Community. Let's try to create another site with M365 Community and see what we get. Okay. Another group with the same alias already exists. So you see, we cannot create a site with the same name unless we remove the site redirect, because the site is still redirecting. It doesn't want people to, for example, somebody already had that site URL and then you change the name and all of a sudden they cannot access it. So that's why sometimes, or that's why it still keeps the original site address so that it can redirect people to this one that we have renamed to. So we're going to quickly take a look at manage site redirects so that we can remove the redirect from that site and then be able to use that site name again. We can mostly do remove site redirects using PowerShell. So let me see if I can quickly do that for us to see. SharePoint Online animation.
Nyore, so while you are trying to use, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, while you're trying to use to connect to PowerShell for SharePoint Online, Joseph
Yes.
is asking that don't we need to give it 10 minutes to sync? So remember that when you changed the description and the address, right?
Yes.
It said it will take 10 minutes. So his question is, let me rephrase the question. So after 10 minutes and everything is properly synced, will the old URL still redirect to this new one?
Yes, it will. The 10 minutes it was asking us to wait was for the address to change. So
Okay.
the redirect would the redirect will still be there for a while, unless you remove it. So yeah.
Yeah, Joseph, I hope you got that.
Okay, so to connect to PowerShell for SharePoint, you need to connect to the SharePoint admin center to be able to use PowerShell. Only if you're a global admin or a SharePoint administrator, you'll be able to connect to SharePoint PowerShell. Without that, you won't be able to use PowerShell. So I will just paste this in my notes again. So it has to be your SharePoint admin URL, because people make this mistake a lot when trying to connect to SharePoint. They either go and use the site URL, and then they come back to say, oh, I'm unable to connect to SharePoint. It is giving me an error. Yes, it will give you an error because you are not using the admin center URL. You are not supposed to use any other URL except the admin center URL. So I'm logged in, and then we want to remove the redirect. So to remove the redirect, you're basically doing remove SPO site identity and then the redirect that we want to remove. So this is the redirect that we want to remove, the old URL, and then so remove SPO sites. Don't confuse this for site deletion, because this is not this command is not to delete a site. To delete a site, you have to do delete SPO sites. Okay. So sometimes people get confused with that as well. So it will ask you if you are sure, unlike when you're trying to connect to SharePoint admin and then other commands, because you are removing this redirect, you can't add it back again unless maybe you rename the site, which is what you have to maybe go back and rename it to M365 community. So yes, I'm sure. I'm just going to do a yes to all, and then I'm done. So let's go back and try to access this site again and see what happens. Okay, so this is still doing this. Still redirecting. Okay, I'm sure that is catch. So I'm going to log in on a private window. Okay, so you see the site is not found because we do not have any sites with that URL, we have removed the redirect. So this is what you're supposed to see when you access a site or a link that you do not have or that you have not created. Also, just to show what happens, sometimes when you are troubleshooting a SharePoint case, not just a SharePoint case, when you are troubleshooting any case at all or any Office 365 application at times, that's something you should also note when you have done something and then you are not seeing the results immediately. It might be catch at that point, so you might just want to log into a private window and quickly see if what you have done has worked or if the issue you're having at that point is catch. So that's why we advise to use a private window or log into a browser you haven't used before just to see that what is happening is happening everywhere or it's just your browser catching old information. Okay. So I think yeah, that is that for change site address, manage site redirect. So I'm going to go to lock and unlock sites. So I'm just going to do something to show you lock and unlock SharePoint sites. So most of these require you to use PowerShell. So that's why I'm opening this to show what we can do by locking and unlocking sites. So you're basically trying to lock a site to um, prevent users from doing anything on the site, or you're carrying on a maintenance, or you're just doing, you don't want users to do anything on the site again. You just want the site to be in read only. You can lock, the site. So you see with permissions of a SharePoint administrator, you can block access to a SharePoint site or make site read only by using PowerShell. So PowerShell is what you can use to lock a site. So this is the command for site lock and unlock site, and then you have different states. So to lock a site, you can, this is the site URL. You're going to put the site URL here to state unlock site to make site available for all users, read only to prevent users from adding, updating, or deleting content. A message appears on the site stating that the site is under maintenance and is read only. No access, you prevent users from accessing the site at all. If you provide a no direct URL, traffic is redirected to the URL you specified. So let's try the read only state and see what we get. So we already have the site URL here. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So read only. I'm going to say read only. So since we already connected to SharePoint and we were already using PowerShell, I'm just going to paste this here and let it run. Oh, sorry, we already deleted that site. So we already deleted that redirect. So as you can see, we couldn't find the site that we're trying to look, right? So I need to copy the new site URL to do that. I'm just going to replace this here so that we don't make that mistake again. Okay, so copy this, paste. Okay, so the command has successfully run. So going to see. So let's try on the private window as well. Let's see. Okay. So you can see at the top of the site, it says this site is read only at the administrator's request. So uh, um, when you're trying to do anything on the site and then you're not able to do it, instead of you wondering, oh, what's happening, you can already see that when you access the site, it tells you that this site is read only at the administrator's request. As you can see, I do not see the option to add anything on this. I cannot even create. Earlier, when we came into this site content, you could see the button that clicked on you. Can't see it. So I basically cannot do anything on these sites because I have locked the site to make the site read only. Okay. Um, so there's something. So let me show you. Site. It's a read only. This is not. Okay, so recently Microsoft has been trying to do some self-diagnostic tools to help easy troubleshooting. So we have sometimes when you see some error messages on your site as an administrator, you can quickly do run any of these self-diagnostic tools to see what is happening on the site. So I'm just going to take this um let's see this. So I've clicked on run test for locked site because I just came and then I can see that a site is locked. I want to quickly see why that site is locked. So I do that and it should give me a prompt and then I add the URL of the site and see what happens. Okay, so it's a diagnostic tool that I have clicked on and then it's asking me to put in the site URL for the site that I'm saying is locked. So I've done that and then I'm going to run a test and let's see if this shows me anything. Okay. So I'm just doing this in case I have another admin in the organization that might have done that command and didn't let me know. So I'm just trying to see what happened. So running that diagnostic here, you can see that it is telling me that the site is locked, right? If you would like, we can attempt to unlock this site. This will allow users with appropriate permissions to view or modify content. And then I can click on I acknowledge. Also, if I had locked this site and with the PowerShell and I don't want to go back and go and connect to the PowerShell, I just want to click on it from the admin center, I can do this as well. So let's do this and confirm if the site is unlocked. Okay. It's just going to take a few minutes to unlock the site. Successfully unlocked the SharePoint file, right? So let's go back into the site and see what we have. You can see that the site has been unlocked, and then the new button is here, which means I can now do other things on the site. I can now create folders, create documents, and all of that. Okay. And so I can do that, and I can also use the PowerShell to unlock. So I'm going to lock it again and use the PowerShell to unlock, since that was what we did. So that we know the different ways we can lock and unlock the site. So I have locked the site again with the PowerShell. I'm just going to use the same PowerShell to unlock the sites. Okay, so I'm just going to do this and say, okay, before I do that, just to confirm, the site is in read only. The new button has disappeared. We cannot create anything again. So I'm just going to say unlock. Okay, done. Refresh the site. Okay, so everything is back to how it should be. So those are the two ways that we can unlock sites. Okay, and remember I also mentioned at the beginning that you can make it read only or no access at all. We did read only, and then you can access the site, but you cannot edit anything. So let's try no access and see. I haven't tried this no access before, so we're going to see what we get. See if as a site admin I'm able to access it or not. Okay, so we have locked it to no access. So let's see what happens. Okay, so no access. Even me as a site admin cannot access it because I have said nobody should be able to access it. I don't want anybody to access the site. And then it gives us 4-3 forbidden, right? And then if we also go back, if you let's do the self-diagnostic again and see. So at this point, it didn't tell us that the site was in read only. It just gave us 4-3 error. So we're running this diagnostic again to see if it still gives us a prompt to unlock the site, or we have to just go and use the PowerShell. So you can see it still shows that the site is locked. So we can come here, acknowledge and update and unlock the site, which we had done earlier. So I'll just go back and use the PowerShell to unlock the site, and then we can move on from there. So the site is back. Site is back. So for example, just like you see, if you have a case or you have an issue where users say they're trying to access a site and they cannot access the site, and you see the error, you could see that it was saying 403 forbidden. So the first thing I expect you to do, or something that you can do to troubleshoot the case, is to run that diagnostic for a locked site and see if the site is locked. Okay, so that would help your troubleshooting very fast. If you have done that and you see that the site is not locked, then you can go ahead to continue that troubleshooting steps. Right. Okay, so I would just go ahead. Okay, so we've talked of lock and unlock sites. We're going to say root sites and change domain name. Okay, so I don't know if we know, I'm sure that we know that a root site is basically a site that is automatically created when an Office 365 domain is created. It is the site that other sites are basically created on. If you do not have your root site, you would not be able to access any other site basically. I need to find, not even sure what my root site is called. So your root site is always your domain name.sharepoint.com. Your domain name.sharepoint.com is always your root site. So my own root site, you can manage sites, you can manage site admins, do every other thing on a root site. You can change the name. As you can see, I had changed the name on my site, but you cannot change the site address, just like we had done on the other sites that we were working on, or that, because it is a root site, you can see that it is grayed out, so you cannot edit it to show you another URL, because that's a default site that is created. It is when you create a new tenant, when you go to your admin center, you would always see the root site there. You can see that the root site cannot be deleted. Some years ago, you had the option to delete root sites, and then some admins or users that were not very conversant with what a root site was would go and delete a root site and then basically scatter every other thing on the tenants, because, like I said, other sites are built on the root site, and then they will not be able to access every other thing. Some people go as far as using a PowerShell to delete the root site, because they're like, oh, I didn't create this site. I don't know where this site is coming from. Let me just delete it. So Microsoft had to change the option to prevent deleting the root site. So yes, you are unable to delete it and cause problems for yourselves that you don't know how that started. So I think that's just a brief explanation of what a root site is. It's a root site, it's a home site. It is the site with your domain name and .sharepoint.com. So most organizations just use this root site as their intranet, right? So that when they just go, when you go to the browser, you just do that .sharepoint.com and then it takes you there, instead of all of the other /site/ this and that takes you to other sites. So basically that's what a root site is. So you can't delete it, and you can't change the site address, just like we did on the other side. Okay. So you can also manage it like every other thing that we did. You can add members, owners, visitors, and all of that. Activities are there as well. And basically, yeah. And then also, yes, another thing is a root site is not a site that has a group. A root site doesn't come with a group. A root site is always a communication site. And then for old SharePoint sites that were created long ago, they were created just as basic classic sites, which I'm sure has changed over the time because Microsoft has started moving or has moved classic sites to modern sites. So basically, any root site that you see, you should see it as a communication site. Okay, so change domain name.
Hi, Nyore.
Yeah,
Yes, so I have a question here before you proceed to change your main name
okay.
from Joseph.
Okay.
This has to do with subscription. I don't know if you can take that or if you have to refer him to one of the videos. So the question is,
Okay.
all right. So the question is, does storage have limit basing on the subscription or it can be determined by admin? So what he's trying to say is the storage of a site, is there a limit to the storage of a site or site storage can be determined by an admin?
Okay, so there's a limit to you can limit storage of a site and then an admin can determine it. But I wouldn't want to say so much on storage because the next session after this one is going to be on storage, which I'm taking as well. So if you don't mind, if you can wait to the next session because storage is also a big topic in SharePoint that we'll look into. So our next session is going to be on storage. So I would just like to hold off on that and then give a lot more details when we come or when we log in on our next session, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
So the next question here is from Ifeanyi.
Mm-hmm.
When you make a user an admin on a SharePoint site, what kind
Mm-hmm.
of permission would the user have?
Okay, so making a user an admin in a SharePoint site is just like giving the user, it's just like an owner's permission, but the admin has a bit more access than the owner. A site admin is just like the owner, like I explained initially, has access to everything. Unlike a member, when you give user a site admin, they can have access to everything in the site, all the document libraries, all of the files folder, even if you don't share it but specifically with them. And just like the analogy I gave, the owner of the house, you cannot prevent the owner of the house from entering into a particular room in the house. So one specific one difference I have seen with a site admin and a site owner that I can tell you at the moment. Let me just give you an example. The practical example that I have seen, the difference between a site admin and a site owner that I have seen that I can quickly just show you is on site permissions. So let me quickly do this and just add somebody or add a member on this site. Let me just grant permission. Mm, okay, let's see. Okay, so sometimes I've had cases where oh when you have some permission issues and you're trying to sometimes there's some conflicting permission, you have done everything on the permission and then the user is still not having the right permissions on the site. You want to basically remove the user from the site collection as if the user has never accessed the site, so that you can grant a fresh permission to the user. And that's where we come to this. This is, I know I'm rushing a bit on this one, but let me see if I can quickly show you SharePoint. So we have that URL that I just navigated to is kind of a hidden URL, right? So from here, you can see that it says you have to browse to each site collection that the user will get visited and follow the steps. So these steps are basically steps to remove a user completely from a site, right? So you can copy this URL and just replace it with your um, tenant name. So let's just do this. So it will be easier for us. So this is on my root site, has everybody in it, but I'm trying to do for the deep dive sites that I have created. So if I come here, I would see everybody that has ever had access to this site, right? And I want to remove this particular user. I can come here, click on action. I can see delete user from site collection. But in some cases, I have seen, or in most cases, I have seen where it is only a site admin that can delete user from site collection. Even if you're an owner and you come here, this might be grayed out for you. So scenarios like this, if say, okay, a user is you're trying to troubleshoot a permission case, and then you're trying to remove user from site collection, and then the person that is trying to delete this is saying, oh, I'm an owner to the site. And then you come here and you see that this is grayed out. First thing you need to do is go into the admin center and grant that user a site admin. So I'm basically saying that a site admin has access to all of the site, just like a site owner, but the site admin has a bit more access than the site owner. So yeah, that's it. I hope that
All right.
explains a bit.
Yes, I believe so. If I please react with an emoji. So just one more question before you continue, so that and then we'll take other questions at the end.
Yeah.
While you are connecting to SharePoint PowerShell, PowerShell use SharePoint Online. So
Yes.
this person, Okpeyemi, asked that what role does he need to be able to perform? I think it was when you were trying to lock a site or change the site address. So what
Yeah.
role would he need, or does
Okay.
someone need there?
So I don't know if I mentioned earlier, for you to use SharePoint PowerShell, you either have to be a global admin or a SharePoint administrator. If you are not a SharePoint administrator, you cannot connect to PowerShell in the first place. Or if you're not a global admin has every other admin under them, including SharePoint. So that gives you the access to be able to connect to SharePoint PowerShell. So you either have to be a global admin or a SharePoint admin. And even the diagnostic that we ran, if you're not a SharePoint admin, you might not be able to do this because this is giving you access directly into the site. So you might not be able to do that as well. So to basically answer your question, to be able to use PowerShell, you need to be either a global admin or a SharePoint admin. You can have the PowerShell, you can download it, or to connect to it. Because like I mentioned, you have to connect to SharePoint Admin Center. So for you to be able to connect to SharePoint Admin Center, you have to be either a SharePoint admin or a global admin. So yeah.
Opeyemi, I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Please, you can proceed. We'll take all other questions at the end.
Okay, so I think we just have 2 more to go. Change domain name, create an organization new site. Okay, so if I had mentioned, I think when I was talking about root site, I said your root site is basically your domain name .sharepoint.com. So domain name in SharePoint is this. That is my domain name for my test tenant, Ifitech, right? So, for example, you are managing an organization, managing SharePoint for an organization, and for some reasons, they maybe merged with another company or they changed the company's name and all of that. It is right that they should be able to change the domain name from what they had to the new name that they have. I would also say some years ago, this was not possible. Whatever you created your SharePoint with, that is how it is going to be forever. So customers complained that that's not right. People change organization names all the time, and then you're saying that I cannot change my organization name. And then Microsoft had to, build a feature to be able to allow you to change your organization name. But even at that, you can only change your organization name once. And then after some years, customers also started complaining to say, why would Microsoft allow us to only change organization name once? What if we change the second time and then we change the third time? Microsoft also looked into it. So now you can change your organization name the second time. But for you to be able to change your organization name the second time, you have to raise a request to Microsoft, and then Microsoft will move it to their engineering team to enable you to rename for the second time. But you also have to give Microsoft a reason why you are changing it for the second time, right? And then they will look at your reason and say, okay, we'll enable it for you. Or but most of the cases I've worked with, Microsoft has enabled second rename. So that is just an overview for domain rename. So I'm just going to show you, to rename your domain, you also have to do that via PowerShell. You cannot do that on the admin center, right? You have to do that via PowerShell as well. So I'm just going to quickly touch that, just run through, and then you see new SharePoint domain. So for me, sorry, I'm not going to run that PowerShell because I don't want to change my domain name. It's not like the SharePoint site where you can just rename and rename back. So if you are changing your domain name, you have to be sure that it is something that you want to do before you do it. I don't advise people to do it as test, but if you're sure it is something that you want to change, because you cannot easily change it back, you have to raise a request to Microsoft, and then they will have to consider if they want to grant you access to rename a second time. So that is why I am not going to do the rename. I'm just going to explain how it is done. Okay. So changing the site name, we had done that. It's just basically going to the admin center and changing the name. But changing the domain name, you have to consider a lot of things before you change your domain name. Some things might not work after you change your domain name, like quick access that you have clicked, or you have on your OneDrive to be able to easily access your SharePoint site, because a lot of things are changing. So if somebody says, oh, I want to change my domain name, basically Microsoft has brought this article for you to look at. It has low impact, medium impact, and high impact, right? So you have to take a look at all of these and see if it is worth it. Sometimes it is worth it because you have changed your organization name. So you have to take a look at everything and make preparation for those changes that you want to make people aware that these are the changes that are going to happen. This might not work. This would work after we have done the domain change. It is not as easy as site rename, like I mentioned, because a lot of things are changing. So you have to, go through everything and make sure that, okay, I'm ready for this change. Sometimes it takes people like a week to, go through everything, make sure everything is in place before they go ahead to do the rename, right? So for you to do a rename, you have to register a different or Microsoft domain in your admin center. So this article basically gives you a step-by-step process on renaming your domain. You just have to look through it and read it. I know sometimes some people are not patient enough to read long articles, but if you are able to calm down and read it step by step, it is something that you can do and something you should be able to do. All of the steps are mentioned here. So to create a new domain, you basically log into your Office 365 group settings domain and add a new or Microsoft domain. So I will quickly just do that and see. So go to settings, domain, and click on add domain. And then I can add a new domain -- Reason why I said sometimes some people don't take time to read through articles or to read through things that they might want to do. I have had a lot of scenarios where people are trying to rename a domain and then they go through an error, they have an error. Let me say domain rename error. So these are different errors that people get when they're trying to rename a domain. So sometimes people they try to rename a domain because okay, so we've come here, you've added a domain because you've changed organization or you've bought a new domain. You add Microsoft 365 community or Microsoft Nigeria community.com, right? And then you say, oh, okay, I've changed my domain name. I have M365 community.ng or .com, and then I want to rename my domain. If you go there and put in that command, it will tell you that the domain name isn't valid because on the article it has told you that you have to have a on Microsoft.com domain. So even if you bought a new domain to say m365community.com, you also have to add a m365 community dot on Microsoft.com to be able to change the domain. The SharePoint domain picks the on Microsoft.com domain, right? So for example, I changed my domain to gleetech217.com, right? Or busted.com, for example. If I want to change my domain name, my SharePoint domain name to busted.sharepoint.com, I have to add a new domain of busted.onmicrosoft.com. That way, I can change my domain name. If I do not do that, if I run the command, I'm going to get the domain name is invalid, right? So that is that for that. You change you add a new dot on Microsoft domain. After you have done that, you connect to your PowerShell and then connect to PowerShell with the admin center URL, and then you copy this, you go into your notepad. You have to be very careful because this is something you can only do once, and then you cannot do it again yourself until you contact Microsoft, giving the reasons why you want to rename again. So you're going to put the domain here. You're going to put the domain name here that you're changing to, and it's something you have to schedule, right? You cannot, it will not take place immediately. So this is explaining to you where domain name is part of, it's part before the SharePoint.com or Microsoft.com that you had just added, and scheduled date time is at least 24 hours in the future, or not more than 30 days. So if you are scheduling a domain rename, it has to be, so if I want to rename a domain, I have to schedule it for tomorrow. That's 24 hours after now, or 2 days from now, or weeks from now. But you cannot schedule it for more than, you cannot schedule it for like next month after 30 days. It has to be, it cannot be less than 24 hours, and it cannot be more than 30 days. So, like I said, the time you enter is based on the current time and date on the computer you are using. So these little details you have to take notes. If not, you're going to get an error, right? So you have to make sure not less than 24 hours, no more than 30 days. You're scheduling it based on the date, on the time, and that is on your computer. So for example, this is start SharePoint domain name, you're changing domain to this, you're scheduling the time for this, and at so time, right? So this is a bit advanced because you have to, go through everything, like I said, so that you don't make a mistake and cause some issues on your tenants. So before now, there are some restrictions to domain rename as well. So just for example, this one is saying tenant rename support for organization with up to 500,000 sites. It's generally available from 1st of September 2025. So before, you still had a limit to, if you have too many sites, you cannot rename your domain because, well, it's kind of like a new feature that they're still building on, even though it's been here for years. But yeah, there's still some changes and some things that are still going on to change. So that is that for domain rename. I don't want to go too deep into it so that I don't confuse us too much, but I think I touched the major things. For you to rename your domain, you have to plan. It's a project. It's not just something that you just say, oh, you want to do. It's a project. So it's something you have to plan, you have to read, you have to make sure that stakeholders, users are aware of this change that you want to make, right? And then before you go ahead and do a domain rename, as a good SharePoint admin, you have to put all of this into consideration. Okay. So last thing I basically want to talk about is create an organization news site. I think that's basically let's use this for example. It's just basically creating a site and say, okay, I want this site to display news just like this. Well, I have this site that's already comes with pre-created news web parts. If web part is something we're going to look into later, but so I've said, oh, this site is a site that I have created and I want to publish news on it or in it. So I can just say, I say news post. I can create blank. So news posts are basically created with site pages. Test news. So I can have a picture. Okay, let's see if I have any picture that I would want to add. Hmm. TV 17th. Let's see. So created the news post. Let's see. I want to send it to anybody. Or not. Can choose to skip and choose to send that. So we've created a page. So let's see what we have here. So basically, if anybody, comes into the site or access your home site in the first place, this is the first thing they see because it is a news that you're trying for everybody to see, and then they can click on it and see all of the details of the event you're inviting them for, or a newsletter or a quarterly report of everything that is happening in the organization and all of that. So just do another one so we can see. Let's just do this like this. Okay. So I can skip this. And yeah, that's it. So I can change the format of how I want my news to appear. Okay. I can say I want it to appear like this. I can say I want it to appear like this. There are different ways that I can say I want it to appear like this. Uh, I can say I want it to appear like this. So basically, you just say, oh, I want my news to appear like this. So when people come into the site, they can see it. However, they can see it like this. They can see it like this, based on the other things um, that you have on the site. Okay, so um, I think for now I would give room to questions if we have any, and then I can answer them. So thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Nyore, for the wonderful session. Guys, let's give her a round of applause with the favorite emoji. Right. And just to add regarding changing of domain in SharePoint, right? So sometimes maybe there is a management buyout. Maybe you're working with an organization, let's say Nyore and Sons Limited, and then something happened, there's a buyout, and then the name changed from Nyore and Sons Limited to Nyore and Daughters Limited, right? So definitely you would want to change your domain, especially for your website, and then you have to add it to your Microsoft 365 also to reflect in your emails and then your SharePoint also. So You just need to go through the steps Nyore has showed us, and then you can have it changed. But again, if you have done the changes before now, you will have to reach out to Microsoft so that they can assist you with this, and then you provide a justification for this. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so let me there are some questions here. Let me see. All right, so Kufri asked a question. In SharePoint, is it possible to grant specific privileges to certain people based on their roles, while at the same time restricting or blocking access to a few individuals? Did you get that? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So it is
Okay.
possible to restrict privileges. So that's why we have different types of permissions in SharePoint, right? You can't grant some people access to everything. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you are granting somebody access, if you are granting somebody site access as a site owner, it means you are giving the person access to everything. But if you don't want to give the person access to everything, you can give the person access as a site member. That way, you can say, okay, this person can only access some document libraries and the site on its own, and then you can prevent the user from accessing other documents or other document library. Even if you can grant somebody access to a document library and then prevent the person from seeing other folders in that same document library. I can be seeing 20 folders in a document library, and then you can be seeing only 2 or 3 folders. That is possible. So you have different ways where you can limit and give people access to different things, even on the same site, the same folder. In a folder, you can have 10 files, and then you want somebody to only see 2 files in that folder. That's also possible. Thank you. Hmm. Joshua, are you still there? Can you hear me? I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, I was speaking on mute. Apologies.
Oh, okay.
So I say thank you very much, Nyore, for that answer. Kufri, I hope you got that. Yeah, so the other questions are regarding how to know about the upcoming sessions, and then to have access to recorded sessions. Okay, so before we call it a day, right? I don't know if I have permission. Rafiah, you're here. You're also here, part of the leaders. Let me see. Okay, so we have, just to give us this information. Maybe we are the first set of people to have this information before we go. So we have a conference coming up. It's a maiden one. Nigeria M365 in conjunction with AgentCon, right? That'll be happening in October. So if you're in Lagos, you are very much encouraged to attend. However, if you're outside Lagos or outside the country, I think there will be a virtual link for that also. So just to let us know, I'll also let me share the link so that we can also register, because because of early registration, right? So that we can all be aware. So outside this, thank you very much, Nyore, for your time. Thank you everybody for joining. Okay, Oyimafu is here too. Thank you very much for joining, and then we'll see you next month for a deep session also on SharePoint that will be taken by Nyore on a different aspect. All right. I wish us a great evening, and let's enjoy the rest of our weekend. Cheers, everyone.